Hello, and welcome to Living Spark, project of the Spark of Humanity Network. I'm Danielle O'Hallisey. I'll be your host today on a program that explores the philosophy of the Spark of Humanity, but also talks about my own personal struggles with putting that into my daily life. And hopefully some of what I go through is going to resonate for some of you. Hopefully you'll be able to share some of your experiences. I know that there's an email address that comes up on the screen during the programs. We're always open to hearing from you and answer your questions, talk about your experiences. And yes, I hope that this program proves to be a benefit for you in some way. I always like to open the program with a little bit of a reading from the Statement of Principles. You can find these documents, some videos, some recorded meditations as well on the website sparkofhumanity.net. You'll see that on your screen as well during the program. I really recommend that you check it out. I'm more conveying a beginner's experience with this and less of an authority on the philosophy, on the approach to one's spiritual growth. When I use the word spiritual, by the way, we adhere to the premise that this is essentially, these are my words, essentially a secular spiritual experience, one that does not require adherence to a given faith or tradition. It is rather a way of hoping to grow our own humanity while recognizing that of others. Now, this statement of principle begins, the insight that there is a spark of humanity in everyone is the foundation of the Spark of Humanity Network. We have discovered that as we connect with and affirm the humanity in others, we are claiming our personal humanity and becoming agents of transformation. Because we have come to believe in the work and the transformative potential of our claimed humanity, we become willing to allow our own defenses to be eroded, our own bafflement to be clarified, and our own distortions to be released. We are willing to be transformed for the work, by the work. It is indeed very good. So what does all that mean? Day to day, living my life, living your life. I find it to be rather abstract at times, and I did a little editing as I was reading it because sometimes I feel like the word spark is used so often that it begins to convey a very specific image of humanity. And for my own taste, I'd like to use the broader term humanity in its place. But what are we talking about here? Like, what do we mean by bafflement, distortions, and how do we go about discovering this spark of humanity, this innate humanity in each of us? How do we go about observing it and claiming it for ourselves, in others, and in ourselves? I've most recently been talking about, there are two topics that in my mind are very much intertwined with one another, patience and habits. I note for myself that my habits of thought are so profound and so interwoven into my life that it's very challenging to undo those habits. And probably the reason that I always see these as so innately intertwined is that someone will say to themselves or to someone else or to me, or I will say it to someone else, be patient, right? You're being impatient. Don't be impatient with me, I've heard a few times. You can tell from all of those observations that I am often impatient with myself and with others. In order to change our impatience, we have to erode the habits of speech and mind and body that we carry with us in life. And in order to erode those habits, because they don't change easily and because they don't just roll over and give up, because we're asking them to. It becomes very important to develop patience. I have heard it said that that patience is the antidote to anger, as well as other things, but that anger is the thing that most often trips us up in our quest to become patient. And I've also heard it said that that habits, require our becoming patient. They also require a lot of observation. What is the root of this habit? I've mentioned my own struggles with weight, and those struggles over many years of time, where vanity was the root of my concern about my weight and my desire to lower it because our culture values being slender. That I did what a lot of us do. I would lose 5 pounds, I'd gain it back. I'd lose 10, I'd gain 8 of them back. And then a couple months later, I'd gain 5 more. And that whole pattern of behavior. What I finally did was, first of all, I had 6 heart attacks. That was the underlying success in my quest to get some control over my weight. And I'm still working on it. Yeah, it wasn't 1 heart attack, it wasn't 2. It took 6 for me to finally take it seriously enough to begin to really look at this. And it took a hospitalization that was from symptoms of my arteries becoming more clogged after the 6 heart attacks, a year afterwards, until I finally really began to tackle this thing. My tackling first involved a New Year's resolution in 2023. I tell this story, I've told it here before, but it's my biggest example of my understanding patience and habit. I don't do New Year's resolutions, or I haven't my whole life. And then, like I said, a lot of health problems, and decided I really needed to take this seriously. So at the beginning of 2023, I started out saying, I'm going to lose 15 pounds this year. And then it was like, no, you're not. Like, I finally had reached the point of understanding that this was an incredibly important thing that I do, and that I wasn't going to do it because I could observe my behavior over many years of time. And my choice was to address the underlying habit and see what that could get me. And I thought, well, in the past, I've said I'm going to lose X amount of weight, and I would lose it. And then I couldn't hold there. I'd either force myself to keep losing, which would inevitably cause me to give up and gain it back, or I would lose the 5, gain it back. I have already said all that today and many other times. The underlying habit had to be observed in its entirety, and the willingness to say to myself that it is going to take a concerted effort over a very long period of time to change that habit, not break it, to change it, to modify it. I said to myself ahead of time, I know I can lose 5 pounds pretty quickly, but the struggle will be to lose the 5 over whatever amount of time, a month, month and a half. But then to hold myself there would have to be part of the discipline to do something and let it sink in. We like that phrase. And then after a given period of time, to then say, now I'm going to have to modify my dietary habits additionally in order to lose the next 5 pounds. And the big hiccup came, I lost the 15 pounds, like down to the wire. I lost the last couple at the end of 2023. But then when I found myself back in the hospital in 2024, I realized that I really needed to review my habits, because I had done what we do in our culture. I'd increased my amount of protein, and in so doing, I was eating more animal products, and I was increasing my cholesterol and fat intake. You kind of get the gist, that it took a long time I'm using the same example for the third time here. Please be patient with me. That is, it's important for you to understand that this common experience became the underpinning for my beginning to look at my own habits of speech, mind, body, and understand that it can be changed, but only through consistent effort. I left myself with a homework task last time we met of saying that I would look for other habits, negative habits, not habits I was going to break, not habits I was going to wave a magic wand at and make them go away, but I was just going to look for them in my own behavior. The first thing that I noticed were how many times in Buddhism, they talk about laziness as in plural, that we have multiple lazinesses. And one of the lazinesses is the habit of discounting our own ability. I can't do this because I can't do it. And how will I ever train myself to do this thing? So there's sort of I'm not going to try because I know I'll fail kind of thing. So I started looking at those things. I also started looking at a habit that I have I've come to realize over a longer period of time than just the last 2 weeks. This is a real problem in our culture. We believe that positivity amounts to reinforcing our own ego, that positivity looks like telling ourselves, I can do it. I can do this. I can look at I have such a compromised heart that I do go to the gym every once in a while when it's really hot out or when it's raining out and I can't take a walk. I'll go and I sit on a stationary bike and I do that and I read while I'm doing it. I get a good workout. I get good exercise from my standards. But there are days when just getting to the gym where you get to this thing, I drive to the building, but it's on the second floor. And there's an elevator or there are stairs. This is a senior retirement community I live in. And if I start up the stairs, and I have been able to do that a little more recently as my weight changes and my health improves a little bit, I start walking up the stairs. I walk very slowly. I'm hanging on the rail. Those are good habits for me because it's still exercise and it's using the support that I need. And so that's also an important habit. I'm greeted by a giant, someone has painted bright colors. If you believe it, if you believe you can, you will do it. And, I'm infected with that thinking just like the rest of us. And why do I say it that way? Because I've seen what false positivity can get you. I lost a friend a few years ago who was having an obvious heart attack, prolonged. His arteries were constricting, and he believed that by meditating and vigorous activity, he could save himself. And he might have saved himself, probably would have, if instead of that, he'd gotten into an ambulance and gone to the hospital. That's the most graphic false positivity thing that I've seen, but I've seen a lot of other things. And hey, look at the Theranos story. Having trouble remembering her name, but Theranos was a company that claimed that they figured out how to take a single drop of blood and simultaneously perform 100 different tests on it, a drop, not a vial, and perform many tests using that drop. And all they really turned out to have was an idea. They had no technology to actually do what they were saying. And it became a problem where they basically were bilking their investors, although I honestly believe that they continued to believe that someday they could do it as long as they could keep getting money from investors. The problem was they were lying to those investors to get the money, and they couldn't do it. Anyway, so yeah, 2 habits that I saw. Negativity, I can't do this because I've never done it before, and I just can't. Or the other side, false positivity. I can do this because I believe I can. And I've been observing those patterns in my own thinking. The one that has struck me the hardest, though, the thing that I find myself doing a lot of, and in doing so much of it, I find that I'm harming my relationships with others and my belief in the humanity of others, and in ultimately, since the Spark of Humanity states that our documents and our belief states that we're reinforcing our own humanity by seeing others' humanity. I'm undermining that because I'm not seeing others' goodness. I'm not seeing their potential for goodness. And that habit is judgment. I judge people relentlessly. I do a lot of it. I catch myself judging others. I catch myself looking at others, somebody who's renowned as being quite an excellent philosopher. You may recognize him from this statement. Once said, "Judge not, lest you be judged." And that always, it sounds like a legal argument or something, but the psychological side of it is this. I just mentioned struggling with weight. And so I see someone else and I go back in my mind, back in the part of my brain that I don't yet have control over. Something in me says, "Oh my God, look at her, she's so fat." Or I am speaking to someone that I'll suddenly feel is argumentative or I'll feel they're judgmental, and I'll judge them for it. I was telling someone about this one time, and she said to me, "Well, you're not really harming them, right? And there are people doing bad things in the world." And she's right on both counts. I mean, if I'm not saying something to them about their weight or their behavior or whatever, I'm not running the risk of harming them in any psychological or physical way. But I am doing something that is eroding my awareness of others' humanity and eroding my own spark, the light inside of me is being worn down by my desire by my habit of judging others. When I was a kid growing up, the ladies in the church I was attending, I was the youngest, so I'd be with my mom and I'd be sitting in a room listening to them talk. And boy, if that didn't teach me a little bit of patience, I don't know what will. But what would? But I'd be listening to them, and the gossip would start. "Oh, do you know what she said? Do you know what she said? Do you know how she?" It's usually about other women, interestingly enough. But I would hear the gossip beginning, and people would say, "Well, at least I don't," whatever they were decrying in others. "At least I don't talk that way. At least I don't think that way. At least I don't embezzle money." It's interesting because you can, no matter what you do, you can always look for the lower shelf and say, "Well, I'm not down there." I imagine that the reason Dante envisioned 7 layers of hell was because of the awareness that each layer could look down and say, "Well, at least I'm not down there. I didn't do whatever it takes to be judged, to be put in that lower realm." We do that. We look for the faults in others, and we find our own faults in others. And we attempt to distance ourselves from our own faults by seeing them in others. And all of that is a habit that's so ingrained. It's so innately part of being human that without trying, we're doing it on some level, I think. There's the political. I try to avoid being political in this discussion. So let's just say that in the course of my life, my fairly long life, I have been on both sides of the political divide. I've been on both sides of, hey, talk about finding my own faults in others. I'm a trans woman. I'm a trans lesbian. And when I was young, I judged those people and allowed my politics to follow that judgment. Because if I found a man to be effeminate, whether he was gay or not, I would judge him. I felt threatened and afraid of expressions of gender that were nonconformist. So I judged those people and I allowed myself to be led into a larger philosophy that conformed to that thinking, or that at least that was kind of its leading edge in the culture. Having come out, having experienced the same judgment that I was making of others being cast my way, I, of course, leapt as far to the other side of the political divide as I could. It's only in recent years that I've begun to realize that probably most people have some value in their perspective, but that they also have really brought really ugly things to the table. I think most of us, ugly is maybe too strong a word, but we bring negativities to the table. And that includes an unwillingness to see the spark in others, right? Now, I began a practice, which is, I'm going to have to be really patient with myself and do this more frequently. I've only tried it a couple of times, but I've begun to address my own habit of being judgmental. Well, here's the thing. I did this exercise, and I'm going to offer it as something you might try, because it allows you to laugh at yourself, to see this fault in yourself, if you have this fault of judging others. And you do. You know you do. And I know I do. I'm not judging you for it. But here was my exercise that I tried once. I was going into the grocery store, and I think it was on my way walking from the car to the door that I saw somebody, and I caught myself like on a deep, almost unconscious level. I thought, I just judged that guy. I can't remember why. And I said, all right, I'm going to give myself a budget. I get 10 judgments for my trip through the grocery store, a half hour, pushing my little cart up and down the aisles. I'm going to give myself 10 judgments to make on others and see if I use them all or if I need more to get through the store. And that first time I did it, I promise you, I made it only halfway through the store before I had judged 10 people. Wasn't like, their behavior wasn't criminal, and it wasn't, it's like one of the things that drives me crazy the most is someone having a phone out and talking on a speakerphone in public. It just gets to me. And so I know that one or two of them were from that. But, I thought somebody was rude. I thought someone else was fat. I thought someone else was being impatient with me. They almost ran into me with their cart. They pushed around me, whatever it was, being honest with myself about my habit of judging others, being honest long enough to get halfway through the store. I stopped counting after that because it was an unflattering picture of myself that I was observing. That little exercise woke me up to this habit and has been allowing me to go deeper into the habits of thought and speech. I can usually shut myself up, and I don't physically act out on my judgments. I don't hit someone or push them away, and I don't talk frequently about my judgments, but I do it. I do it in my mind. And so this is going to be my homework for next time. I'm going to be watching myself for instances of judging others, and I'm going to do nothing more than notice them. I might ask myself, where's that coming from? If it's something I'm insecure about, I want to try to pair those things. I'm concerned about my weight for my health's sake. I'm judging someone else because they clearly have too much weight, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm running out of time. I am out of time. That's my homework. Thank you for joining me. Have a great couple of weeks. I'll see you again soon.